Hi, welcome to my channel. Today I am going to be going over the highly discussed topic on bag defects. So I've noticed on social media recently a lot of people have been complaining about the quality and how it's just going downhill from luxury fashion houses, whereas their prices have just increased. So I just wanted to share a quick little chit chat video with you about my experiences with these fashion houses and defects in bags that I have found and what the fashion houses did to resolve them. So when I was at the Louis Vuitton flagship store in Paris, I was going there to purchase a couple of bags just because the discount is so great. So I actually went in there with my husband. We were taking a look at multiple bags and I was looking at the Damier Ebene Neverfull MM. So before I purchase a bag, I like to give it a really thorough inspection. So I will check all of the corners, I'll check the straps, all of the canvas all around, make sure that there's no scratches or nicks or anything. I'll check the interior very, very thoroughly. All of the stitching, make sure that it's all lined up. And then just for giggles, I will also check the date stamp just to kind of see when it was made versus when I am purchasing and where it was made, because that's always fun to know ahead of time also. So I gave this one a quick glance over, not as thorough as I usually do, just because we were kind of in a rush and there were a lot of people there. If you've ever been to the flagship store, you will even know that there is a line outside because everybody is wanting to get in. So I just kind of looked it over. I thought that it was pretty thorough and I gave it back to them. I said, yes, I will go ahead and purchase it. Go ahead and package it up for me. So they took it, and right when they took it, I kind of noticed something on the top and I was like, oh, that's probably nothing. I was kind of doing something else and I was like, no, let me take another look at it. So I looked at it, and if you're familiar with the Neverfull design, there's that piece of the treated leather trim that goes around the top edge of the canvas. And there was a giant scrape on it, probably 1 to 2 inches long. And I don't know how I missed it the first go around when I was taking a look at it, but like I said, we were kind of rushed, or maybe the lighting wasn't right. I don't know. Thank goodness I noticed it before I gave it to him to package up, because usually when I'm buying something in Europe, I don't take another look at them until I get back home in the States. So I was really thankful that I caught that. But I think it's really odd that they don't inspect the bags, first off, when they're in the factory or leaving the factory, or when the store gets them in. So it had to have happened sometime between the production point and then hitting the floor. At no point, nobody looked at the bag and noticed this giant scrape on the top. You would think that they would see that because it wasn't small and it was in a fairly obvious place. But I guess I did miss it when I was looking at it. But you would think if it's your job to sell, you want to make sure all of your bags are nice and in pristine condition before you show them to a client. Luckily, they had another bag in stock, so he went and got a different bag, showed me that one did look good, and then I gave that one back to him and I said, okay, yes, package this one up. And I was just crossing my fingers that he didn't go back and package the other one up. Luckily he didn't, and I got the new bag that I really wanted. But I can't imagine what other people have gone through if they do buy something in a foreign country and then transport it home, because you do save a lot of money. I tend to shop in Europe and then just transport everything home and save a bunch that way. Check out my VAT refund video if you want some tips and to see how much I have saved recently. But I am curious what they did with the defective bag. Did they just pawn it off on another customer, or did they send it back to the factory to either have the trim replaced, or did they just destroy the bag? I don't know what they did. Hopefully they did the right thing and not try to sell it to somebody else. But that is just one of my experiences dealing with a defective bag in the store that was available for purchase. Another purchase I made with a defective Louis Vuitton bag. So I really wanted this particular bag, and this was the Speedy 30 in the Damier Ebene. Bandolier, of course. I really wanted this bag. I didn't have any trips to Europe planned anytime soon, and there's no Louis Vuitton store around me or near me. So what I did was I found a sales associate at a Saks store, because I like to get points on my Saks card, so I always try to purchase those items through like either Neiman Marcus, Saks, places like that. So I contacted an SA there. She had one. She shipped it to me. But as soon as I got it, I was kind of looking it over like I always do as soon as I get a bag. And on one of the chaps, which is where the top handles attach to the bag, if you're not familiar, on one of the chaps, there were 2 giant scratches going across it. And they were very parallel to each other, and it actually traveled up, and then you have the little rivet there. So it kind of curved with the leather, to underneath where the rivet is and then kind of up again out the other side. So clearly this happened during the manufacturing process. There wasn't an after thing because there weren't any scratches on the rivet, and you could tell that it went under the rivet and kind of back up on the other side. So if this happened during the manufacturing process, why isn't there any quality control looking over these bags with a fine-tooth comb? If you were trying to sell a piece of canvas and leather for, I think they were like $1,400 when I purchased it, which is quite a big chunk of change for when the materials themselves don't cost that much, you need to make up for that somehow in your customer service aspect. Yes, you're purchasing the name, but behind the name comes quality control, all of the history. So I totally understand why the prices are what they are, and I'm okay with that. But with luxury prices, there needs to be some luxury conditions. So if a bag has scratches on it from the manufacturing process, which I'm not sure what would have scratched it, maybe it could have been like a sewing needle or something. I don't know what they have in their plans. It could have been a number of things, but if something had scratched it, at no point in time was somebody at the factory, you know, looking over all of these bags with quality control. Like, even if you had somebody spend 5 minutes per bag, or I don't even know how much they spend, but I think if you spent even 2 minutes per bag looking every single detail over, checking on the stitching, then that would resolve 90% of the returns and defects and damaged pieces that are sent to the stores, where the sales associates don't necessarily have time to look everything over, but when they present it to a client, they should have at least kind of glanced at it. But I just think that something needs to be revamped in the process, in the manufacturing process, to the sales floor with these luxury items. So they're raising these prices faster than like cost of living and inflation is going up, which means that they should be making up for that additional profit somehow to justify their prices. So I am totally okay with paying these higher prices if that means higher quality, but I'm finding that it doesn't. And I think what the real issue with that is when you have somebody who's not super familiar with the brand. Maybe this is somebody's first or second bag and they don't know what to look for or what to expect, and they'll just accept it as is when they're actually getting an inferior product. Or if they go to resell it, somebody else is going to notice that right away, because when you're selling something, you know, you're taking close-up photos, or if you send it to a consignment shop, they're going to notice that, and then the original purchaser isn't going to get as much money for it as they are owed. And I think at the end of the day, those are the people who are the real victims of these luxury fashion houses' inferior quality and practices. So yes, Louis Vuitton, they're at a slightly lower price point with their canvas pieces. They are producing a large quantity that is trying to meet this high demand of this, what social media boom has created. Everybody wants a Louis Vuitton piece, and as far as luxury goes, they are the much more affordable option. So, okay, I kind of understand. I don't agree with it, but I kind of get it. When a fashion house like Chanel, though, has an inferior quality product, that's, I think, where the issue truly lies. So I purchased my Chanel wallet on chain shortly before the last price increase, when they were only the $2,100. So I want to say I purchased it late November, early December, right around there. So I used it a few times. I really enjoyed the piece. I fell in love with it. But I noticed one day when I was looking at the front, it started looking a little bit gray. So it was in the black caviar, and on the top flap in one of the little diamonds, it was kind of gray. So I took a closer look at it, and I noticed that the top, I guess you can call them bubbles, or top pieces of the caviar of the grain, was actually starting to rub off. So the leather itself, it hadn't hit anything, it wasn't scratched or damaged or anything, it was practically brand new, but it was just kind of like peeling off. And so I was really confused as to why this was happening in just this one spot. It wasn't near the zipper or anything like that. It was some random spot on the front flap. So I purchased it in Las Vegas, and I texted my sales associate. I even sent her a photo of it, and it took her like a day or two to just even respond back to me. I bet you if I had texted her like, hey, can I buy something else, she would have gotten back to me right away. But it took her like 2 or 3 days to respond. And her response was, hey, do me a favor, go get a damn cloth and slightly rub it. It looks like it's glue. Lady, I'm in my late 20s. You think I know what glue looks like? First off, wouldn't I have known if my bag was near glue? Like if I had spilled glue on it, I would have noticed that. I would have been like, oh, this is probably glue from this. Secondly, if it was glue and I hadn't been around any glue, that means it would have come from the factory, and you shouldn't have sold me a damaged or defective or stained bag in the first place. And I would have seen that when I bought it. So a glue stain wouldn't just show up. I was a little bit peeved by this because I was like, I'm showing you pictures. I had some really good close-up shots of where it was peeling off, and she didn't want to accept it because I think she didn't want to lose the commission on it. So this one had the silver hardware, and they were like backlogged for a little while because there was a big run on these. Everybody was wanting silver hardware for some reason at this particular time. So I don't know what her reasoning was with that. I explained the situation and she was like, well, let me talk to my manager, see what I can do. And then she never really got back to me. Luckily the next week I had a business trip planned anyways, and I was actually out in Beverly Hills. So I brought my piece into the Rodeo Drive store, which I was kind of nervous about just because since it's on Rodeo Drive, that's a very high touristy spot, and I was like, am I gonna have to wait? But that was the closest store to where I was, because if you've been to LA, you know that it takes forever to get anywhere. The traffic there is absolutely horrendous, and I was like, I'm just gonna go to the closest one. Hopefully they can get me in. So I went in there. I actually called them ahead of time, and she's like, yeah, bring it in, let me take a look at it. So I went in there. I had an appointment set up. She wasn't a sales associate. She kind of worked, I don't know if she was like a manager or somebody who worked with fixing things and like an aftermarket specialist type thing. I know Louis Vuitton has those, so she might have been something like that. But I showed her the piece, she looked at it, she took it upstairs for a second, came back down right away and said, yes, this is defective. I know you just bought this. It's not in an area where that would normally show wear and tear from use, so it's definitely defective. We will get you a new one. Now, this was in December. If you are a longtime Chanel fan, they had a price increase in January, like a month later. She said, we can get you a new one. We don't have any in stock right now. We can always return this one, and then when the new ones come in, you can repurchase it. Luckily, at that time, I followed all of the Chanel forums, Facebook groups, everything like that. So I knew that there was gonna be a price increase in January, because when there's gonna be a price increase, everybody knows about it. Everybody's talking about it early on. So I was like, well, I can't return it and then rebuy it, because if I return it now and try to rebuy it, if it's not in stock by the time of the price increase, you're gonna try to charge me the higher price. So we asked her about the price increase, and she said, no, I don't know about any price increase. We don't have that information. So I said, well, let me just take the bag. Whenever you guys get the new one in, I will ship you this bag and essentially exchange it for the new bag. And she said, yes, that would be perfectly fine. Here's my card. I will let you know as soon as we get the new ones in stock, and then we can exchange it for you. So I took my poor little defective bag home, and then a couple weeks later, after the price increase, she calls me, says they have a new one in. So she sent me the shipping label. I shipped her my bag. She sent me the new one. Luckily, shipping and everything was free of charge. And since it was an even swap at that point in time, I did not have to pay the difference from the price increase. But again, if somebody was new to the brand, or they didn't follow any Facebook groups, forums, anything like that, and they didn't know about the price increase, then they might have just returned it and then waited for the new one, and then would have ended up paying an extra $400. All because Chanel decided to sell a defective product. So at the end of the day, as a consumer, the only real ways that we can try to combat these price increases with defective items and poor customer service is, one, either don't buy the items, which if you are a luxury lover, that's not an option, because they're always coming out with new fun stuff, and you don't want some bad experience that hopefully was just a one-time thing in the past to prevent you from enjoying a new piece that's coming out. You can buy pre-loved. Maybe the defective aspect has already been pointed out. You know these particular pieces don't have a defect, or you're going to be saving a lot more money because of a defect. Or 3, knowledge is power. I think if you do your research, if you were trying to buy this one particular piece, first off, know if there's going to be a price increase on it soon, so you know when the best time to purchase it would be, or if you have to return and exchange it, you know which way to go on that. Or search a bunch of forums, discussions, and things like that to see what other people's experiences are on these pieces, to kind of have a heads up on what you're getting yourself into, known issues. If you have your heart set like on the Pochette Matisse, and then you find out, oh, the edges have been cracking, or there's a glazing issue, and you're gonna have to return it. I know some people that have returned and exchanged it 3 separate times because of these known defects, and at the the end, they were just like, I'm just gonna get a separate piece. I am sick of having to keep bringing this back to the store. So maybe if they had known about that ahead of time, they wouldn't have had to waste all of that time on something that they ultimately didn't end up with. So I think as long as you know what you're getting into and you have a backbone that you can stand up to a sales associate, not in a rude way, but maybe a gentle but firm way to let them know, no, I'm not going to accept subpar for a luxury price, then I think in the end, these luxury pieces are worth it because they do make us happy. I know it's a silly first world thing to be saying, but I really enjoy fashion pieces. It's art, it's history, it's design, it's all cultures coming together to make this beautiful thing that everybody can enjoy. And I think in the end, yes, it can be worth it. You just have to do your due diligence ahead of time. If you're gonna be spending this kind of money, why not do some research on the piece? And that does it for my rambling and long chit chat discussion. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Let me know what you think about this subject in the comments down below, and make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that way you are notified the next time I make a video on luxury and fashion and fun things like that. And until next time, thanks for stopping by.